everyone has their own personal definition of what achievement means to them. Here at Meredith College, one thing I know is that achievement is more than just personal success. Achievement is about lifting others up as you rise. It's about leaving an indelible mark on your community, and it's about inspiring the next generation to something greater. Since 2007, our Woman of Achievement Award has recognized extraordinary individuals who embody these ideals. From Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg to choreographer Twyla Tharp, and from journalist Judy Woodruff to chef Vivian Howard, our recipients represent the remarkable breadth of ways that women transform our world. Each winner has demonstrated visionary thinking, entrepreneurial spirit, and an unwavering commitment to our intellectual and cultural landscape. Tonight, we celebrate a woman whose journey began in our very halls. Dr. Betty Webb, Meredith College, class of 1967, represents the very essence of what makes Meredith College special: the pursuit of excellence, coupled with a dedication to opening doors for others. Betty's story is one of continuous growth and fearless adaptation. From her early days teaching at Apex High School during the challenging period of school integration, to earning her PhD in Irish Literature at UNC Chapel Hill as a prestigious Danforth Fellow, she has constantly chosen paths that demanded both courage and commitment. But it was perhaps in her role as Director of International Programs right here at Meredith College that Betty's impact truly reached its furthest potential. Her vision and her determination led to the creation of our beloved Sansepolcro campus in Italy, a legacy that continues to transform our students' lives through the power of global education. Even in retirement, her dedication to Meredith endures, as evidenced by her recent return to lead our Wings program. Betty's numerous accolades include the Pauline Davis Excellent in Teaching Award, 2 Laura Harrell Presidential Awards, and the Martha Fitch Trigonis Individual Award from the North Carolina Association of International Educators. These speak to her extraordinary impact. But I think we all know that her greatest achievement is in the countless lives that she's touched, the horizons that she's broadened, and the doors that she has opened for generations of students. In the near future, in Betty's honor, we will plant the beautiful gardenia you see in front of me on campus. It will have a permanent place for future students to enjoy. But now I think it's time that we meet Betty. So Betty, if you'll join me out here, and if all of you will join me in congratulating our alumna Betty Webb, Meredith College's 2025. Now, to help us delve just a little deeper into Betty's remarkable journey, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Jean Jackson, a 1975 Meredith College alumna and our Vice President for College Programs. Jean herself, a distinguished member of our community and our most recent Woman of Achievement Award recipient, brings her own impressive legacy to this conversation. For 4 decades, she has shaped Meredith's academic excellence, directed our beloved Alice in Wonderland tradition, and demonstrated an unwavering commitment to our college's mission. And I think she's only here because Betty hired her. True. So please join me now in welcoming both Dr. Betty Webb, our 2025 Woman of Achievement, and Dr. Jean Jackson, who will lead us in what promises to be a fascinating conversation.
Betty, you were brave. Thank you. talking. We're going to just have a conversation. We invite you to listen in and react as you will. I want to begin with a question that Betty doesn't know I'm going to ask. That likely is the most burning question for generations of Meredith students. Miss Webb, would you say your Chaucer lines? Okay, everybody who laughed needs to say them too. So let's see how far you get. One that
April, with the surest soda, the drift of March had passed to the rota, and bothered every rain and swish the cool. On Zephyrus ate with the sweet to break, and spirit half, and every holt and heath. And the younger summer hath in the rhymes how the chorus Iron,
and small.
like a melody that's sleeping on
We're going to
the
stop. See, Dr. Rose was right. If you say those things every year or so, you will remember them for the rest of your life. Some of y'all have some catching up to do.
I think if you listen to them 3,000 times.
It does help. Betty, when you were a little girl in Statesville, North Carolina, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I think I thought I wanted to be a nurse because that's what my mother was. She was not a compassionate nurse because if you said to her, "It hurts when I touch it," she said, "Don't touch it," and went on about her business. It was a quick cure.
Well, as you know, in case you want to live out this dream, in the fall you
Yes.
enroll in Meredith and start another.
That is right.
But what drew you to Meredith? Because at that time we didn't have nursing.
By the time I'd finished high school, nursing wasn't where I was headed. I had learned that I liked to read, and that if you were an English major, you could get credit for reading. So it was a good deal. What drew me to Meredith? I think a woman named Pat Taylor, who was the older sister of a friend of mine who was at Meredith, and I thought she was very cool. And therefore, if I came to Meredith, maybe I would be cool as well. And interestingly, she's traveled on the Meredith programs with us. She now lives in Davidson, where one of my best friends lives, so I get to see her and thank her. She went on to be the head librarian at Emory.
Nice. I hope she saw my niece sometime while she was there. Can't say for sure. She's a very nice niece, I will say that. What about being a double major in English and history appealed to you? So many students change majors. What made you persist?
I think so many works one understands better if one has a good understanding of the history in which they were written. So a chance to do both, and neither required mathematical skill, which I had not. I was always very good in arithmetic, but not in mathematics. So I just like them, good teachers.
Okay. Well, when did your teaching career start? And what was special about the time and place that it did? What were the special challenges then and there?
I was sent as a student teacher to Apex High when Apex was a town of 2,000. Its high school graduated 55 students. When I first saw it, I thought, how could they send a sophisticated Statesville girl to this country town with these country kids? And about 3 days later, I fell truly, madly, deeply in love with the kids. So I student taught there. I stayed on for the following semester because I was graduating a semester early. I don't know what my race was about, except I was running to get somewhere fast. And then I taught the next year, which was the first year of integration. We had one African American student in that class. I went back to state as a graduate student. Took 2 years doing that, and then when I got out, the only jobs that I was aware of, one was at Peace College, and if you went to Meredith, you could never go teach at Peace because we were serious competitors at that time, and it was a women's college. And Apex, which was integrating 100%, and that meant there was 50-50 racial divide. And I've said many times, and probably to many of you, it was the most important decision I ever made. I don't know if my students learned a thing, but every day I learned something that's been so important for me to know from those kids. And one of the best days of my life is we were under federal court order to integrate. So you could be in the middle of a class and someone would knock on your door and they would want to give the racial breakdown of your homeroom. And when I came to Jerry Allen's name, and I could remember 10 things about him, but I couldn't remember his race. And I thought, okay, there's hope. We will make progress in the South, and there will be things that are more important than race. And I'm still on Facebook with Jerry Allen. So, and there may be some of my kids from Apex. There they are. Rascal David Prince, who called me one spring and said, "You're not going to remember me." And I said, "David Prince, how could I not remember you?" Without his having told me his name. His voice I well remembered. And he said, "Well, I just wanted to tell you I've turned 72. And it was pretty shocking to realize I had taught kids who are now 72 until I did a little arithmetic. And he was 3 years younger than the first kids I taught, who were at that time 75 or 76. And he's here with classmates. So, can I tell them the story about when we connected first? I went to the Martin Luther King commemoration downtown, and there was a play being performed, and guess who the author of that play was? David Prince. His wife came to Meredith, and one of his classmates came to Meredith. Is that Elva? I can't see with the light in my face. Meredith graduate, so.
Wow.
Welcome. I can't wait to have a chance to really catch up.
When did you learn that students would teach you at least as much as you taught them?
I would say the Apex kids taught me that. Every day I learned something from those kids that was really important in my life. Made me love teaching. Plus you get to boss people around.
And very good at it. So, I know that you love that job. I've heard you talk about those students for many years. So why did you leave that job?
I almost didn't. I got offered the Meredith job because the person who had been doing the English ed had retired, and because I had taught real public school. I don't think she had ever put her foot or her children's feet in a public school, but I had been there, so I was offered that job because of these kids, and almost didn't take it because I liked teaching them so much.
Do you remember when you came to Meredith?
No, one of the things I cannot do is remember dates.
I know. I know, teacher. I know. It was my freshman year.
And I still hired her, I mean, tell me.
Not for a while. you, Meredith, and then you took a leave of absence. Would you tell us about that?
Yes, I was very lucky, and I'm proud to say the only Meredith alum to have received a Danforth Fellowship. And a Danforth Fellowship is carte blanche. They pay your tuition, room, and board. My father was mad I didn't go to Duke because that would have really cost them. Instead, I went to Chapel Hill, which was a bargain. And a stipend for 3 years. And then I was lucky enough to get somebody else's money for the 4th year so I could really be a full-time student.
And so when you came back, you didn't just come back, you came back as department head.
Of a sort.
Well, while the legendary Dr. Rose and Dr. Knight were still teaching. So
yes.
We want to know, what was it like to supervise them? and you can tell us, how were their evaluations?
Well, one of the stories I like to tell was when Dr. Rose called me in. There are people out there who don't know Drs. Johnson, Rose, and Knight, called the Unholy Trinity, the Godhead 3 in 1, and people whom we only said yes ma'am to, and I never left a note on Dr. Rose's desk that I didn't turn around and go back to proofread one more time. Just terrified. And so Dr. Rose said to me, I think that probably now that you're department head, you need to quit saying yes ma'am to me. And guess what I said? Yes ma'am. Right out of my mouth it came. And thus it always would. And I see nods from the heads of people who knew those women, but they were brilliant. They didn't put grades on our papers. They said, if grading is what is important to you, parenthesis, not learning, then you can come to my office and I'll be happy to tell you your grade. Well, if you wanted a definition of somebody with a death wish, it would be somebody who would go and ask what their grade was. So it was always a surprise. And once I had a student, I don't even remember the course, he said, well, I thought I was going to make an A in this. And I said, well, your teacher didn't. Why do you think you would? They were very stingy with A's. I think in my class, there were 2 women who made A's in upper level English courses. Don't ask if I was one of them.
We won't. But for those who don't know these women, they were all Meredith alums. And so for decades, Meredith alums taught Meredith alums taught Meredith alums. They taught you.
They did.
They taught me.
They did.
Then you taught Robin.
Yes.
Did you teach Kelly?
Yes.
I taught Kelly. And so this has been a long series of information about the college and about an approach to English that was passed down. Dr. Johnson was class of 1917. Dr. Rose, class of 36, and Dr. Knight, class of 43.
I once found a student sitting outside Dr. Knight's class on the floor, and I thought she was late and scared to go in, because if you were late, you got a tongue lashing. If you were found to be chewing gum, you had to stand up and recite your last memory lines. I mean, these were serious women. So I said, I'll be glad to run interference so you can get off the floor and go into the class and have a seat. And she'll forgive you for being late. And she said, I'm not late. I'm not in that class. And I said, well, what are you sitting on the floor for? And she said, it was my favorite class that she taught, and I just wanted to hear it one more time. So they were And oh, the other thing about Dr. Knight, we could hear her coming down the hall. She'd put her hand on the door frame and flip into the classroom and go straight to the windows, which she would open even if it were 0 degrees outside. So we knew to wear coats and be prepared for whatever it was. Well, our eyes would meet her at the door. We would then go to the window, and once we did that, and she wasn't at the window, so we looked back to see where she was. She had slipped, fallen behind her desk, and by the time, we were thinking, do we get up, do we help her, do we, she leapt straight up, opened the windows and came back, and it was clear that our best bet was to act as if we hadn't noticed, which we did. And then after class, students are saying, did she fall down? Yes was the answer. So we were pale imitations of those women.
Well, once you let go of yes, ma'am, what was the hardest thing about being head of the Department of English, and what was the most interesting?
Actually, the hardest thing was doing schedules, and I found a rubber stamp of this fierce-looking lion and put that on the top of the schedule when I posted the schedule as a warning, don't speak to me if you don't like your schedule, because it's the best we can do. Of course, this is when we taught at 8 o'clock, morning and night. And so, you don't like it, tough.
Yep, keep teaching. What made you turn toward international programs, and what did you gain by doing so?
What made me turn? Well, it's a lot more fun to travel with students than to grade their papers. It's just the way it is. And if you teach English, then taking students to England is something that is a great pleasure to do, so I started with that. What did I acquire? Lovely experiences, lovely friendships, and an English husband. So it was a good decision to switch.
It was a great decision. Well, why is it important for students and faculty to study internationally?
Well, I think as Americans, we are well known to be we don't know the maps, we don't know world geography, we don't know much about the rest of the world. And I think that's a real disadvantage for us in so many ways. For one, in fact, I was in a conversation today about, what was it? I was having lunch with friends, and the issue came up of the difference in England. I'm taking away for tomorrow. In England, you don't take away food. You didn't. You do now, because Americans have had that beneficial influence. But John Rose, my husband, would always say to me, you ask for a takeaway. I said, you're American, they expect you to be barbaric. Leave the restaurant with food in your hands. It just makes you so much more conscious of what you do and how culturally specific that is, and how that might benefit from a reflection. And then you make friends. Sitting out in this audience are Sansepolcro friends. You're going to get to, this is a privilege, we had no idea that it would work out this way. You're going to get to hear them sing during the dinner tonight. They are both nationally recognized opera singers. How do I know them? Because John got to know them, because John got to know everybody. And he made them come sing for our students. And nobody ever said no to John, is that right? Just wasn't worth the energy, so I agree with him. I got a call yesterday from a lovely friend from Sri Lanka. Just a coincidence, he called yesterday and he may come to Bath this summer and spend some time when I'm there. And he was able, after the tsunami, to go to the University of Western Toronto and do an engineering degree, largely based on the funds given him by, is Rick McBain here? Rick McBain in our library. Rick wouldn't let me tell anybody for years that he made that contribution until it dawned on me that he was like my mother. My sister and I used to say about her, she was very proud of her humility. Okay? I just wasn't going to let him get away with it anymore. So we sang his praises. He knows we did. He doesn't know we're doing it again, but just making wonderful connections. And then, I'm looking right now at Rebecca, who called Meredith College campus minister's office and asked during the real immediate aftermath of the tsunami, what was Meredith going to do to help the Sri Lankans? And 2 study abroad programs, one of which was attended by my friend Judy, who's sitting right behind Rebecca. It's all connected, and once you begin that connection, it takes a life of its own. So when John died, I was fascinated by the number of countries that we heard from friends from, and I like the world much better the smaller it gets, and I was just hugely privileged in that work.
Absolutely. Oh, not everybody. Not everybody here knows that you and John were there when the tsunami occurred.
We were.
Could you tell a little bit about that, and then maybe tell some of the things Meredith did?
Well, the one thing I like to say is that if people think you're dead and you come back from the grave, they'll do almost anything you want. So, when we came back, we wanted, and the campus minister at the time, Sam Carruthers, cooperated, spurred on by Rebecca. Meredith raised $125,000 for its projects in Sri Lanka. And our experience with it was we were around the corner from where it hit, the day it hit. And I had said the day before that had I known how lovely a game park we had been in was going to be, I would have wanted to stay another day. If we had stayed another day, we would have been in the middle of the worst of the tsunami. So it was a great amazement that we were around the corner. All of the communication got knocked out, so all we could do was look out from Colombo, the capital, and the sea, and see things, odd things, clothes, pots and pans, things that had really come up from the south. We had met that day the loveliest children that we met the whole time, and that's amazing because there are many, many lovely children. And I thought, once the news began to break and we knew what happened, and I'll tell you how much we knew about tsunamis. I didn't know it started with a T. I thought it was S-U-M-A-N-I, okay? Had never seen the word. And so we went to a friend of ours and said, we'd like to check. The kids in that family had asked for our address so we could send them a postcard so they could take a postcard in the United States to school. So we said, sure, glad to do that. Had their address in Colombo, where this group was from, visiting family they had where the tsunami was most devastating. And so we went to John's good friend, who was the senior clerk in the House of Parliament and said, "Can you tell us how we get there?" And he said, "Oh, it's not a safe neighborhood, you shouldn't go." His wife said, "I'll take you." Immediate bonding with his wife. And so off we went. Those kids had made it. They were in the last train to go through before the train you all saw the pictures of that was completely devastated. And that began a relationship. And I have just finished this week, heard from one of those women whose children needed help to go to school. And so they will be contacts forever. Fatima, she was, but we were completely safe. It was clear to us that we had nothing to offer the rescue phase, that we needed to get out of the way, and we would come back for the restoration phase. But Meredith adopted a school, it adopted an orphanage, and made really wonderful contributions. And the two groups, are there any students here who were on those groups? Judy was. And it was just a privilege in every regard.
Was each
Judy was on to two programs.
Yeah. The next year and the following year.
Yes.
Right.
And then Sansepolcro fell apart. I mean, not Sansepolcro. Sri Lanka fell apart politically and wasn't a safe place to go. And so we shifted our interests.
I don't know how to make a bridge to the next question. I'm just going to ask the next question. What gives you the most pleasure in traveling with students in countries other than our own?
I think just seeing the pleasure it gives them. I mean, I'm looking out at faces that people I wouldn't have known. There's one naughty group I'm looking at.
Y'all are famous, I just want you to know.
That's right. We still get together every couple of months, every 3 months, and I learned something they got up to that I didn't know prior to this time, plus the fact that they kept 2 journals, the one they turned into me, and the one that I'm destined never to see, and I think I'm grateful for that. Okay, but just seeing, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's fun. So, yeah, we've had a good time. And they're groups I still get together with. I'm looking right at one right now. And other groups, we ought to get together because it's a good time to remember what we did and to see where we are now.
How did you determine that instead of just traveling and studying in Italy, that Meredith needed a permanent home there?
Because our president came back from a meeting where she had met other presidents who were at colleges that had a campus abroad, which is something that normally drives the Office of International Programs crazy because it comes with many, 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 many challenges and learning opportunities. But we fortunately had our foot in the door at Sansepolcro, and it has been, in every regard, a pleasure. Can't walk down the street without seeing people you know. If you hear someone speak English, you go, you know, what are you doing here? It's not your place. This belongs to Italians and us. And it has an amazing story. The English person who, and we fortunately have met the daughter. She came out for our 10th anniversary, but Sansepolcro was slated to be bombed, flattened, because the Germans were occupying it. And that did not happen because the person in charge of making that decision, a young man, got the word that they were going to retreat. And his principal investment in the town was Aldous Huxley's essay, The Greatest Picture, which was about Piero della Francesca's painting of the Legend of the True Cross. There stands Jesus with his foot, his shoulders squared. He is not a humble Jesus. He is a Jesus who has risen from the grave and inspired so many people, and in many people's regard is the greatest painting of the Renaissance. So the fact that that was there was a real incentive to save the town. And the one thing the Germans did was blow up the main tower in the central piazza, and in a funny, not ha-ha way, that was a favor because they can have wonderful events in the middle of that piazza that they would not have been able to have if there were a tower in the event. You can go out one day and find there's a circus that's moving around through that part of Italy, and it's in the main piazza. And there's an elephant, okay, that wasn't on the list of things you expected to have happen that day. And all kinds of wonderful markets and community events, including the Balestra, which is the annual crossbow contest with a community down the street from them that takes you back to the Middle Ages. It's just, and I see people who know what I'm talking about nodding in agreement. It is an amazing, amazing town. So we were very fortunate that the question was asked, could we think about a campus abroad?
What's different about leading travel groups of alumni and other friends of the college from leading students?
Good question. I don't think alums respond to raised eyebrows like students do. And I don't think I'm quite as inclined to raise an eyebrow to an alum, but it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience sharing the students' experience with alums, many of whom I see here right now. They might have traveled the world, but they have not been to Sansepolcro. And we try, because Becky and I are arrogant, we try, she is, to make sure that what we do is a custom tour, that it's not a brochure tour, that we use what we know and what we want other people to know to create our own trips. And I think we have a good time doing it.
What drew you in at least the fourth stage of your Meredith career to working as Director of Outreach for Women?
Well, that's a funny story, and a lot of you have heard it, but I got a call from Joe Allen, who was my freshman English student, who told me that there had been an unexpected resignation, and would I be willing to do this? And for a year, half-time job, ha ha ha. There is no such thing as half-time job. That's right. And I said, not if you're asking me to do this because you feel sorry for me because John died. And she said, sorry for you? I feel sorry for me. School is starting next week, and we don't have anybody in this position. And I thought, well, that makes sense, okay. So I said yes, and it's been just such a privilege. These are the 23 plus women, and I've made fast relationships, good friends, been so impressed by their stories, the challenges they have faced, the challenges they do face to be here and do the kind of academic work they do. It's been my pleasure.
So what does a second retirement mean for you?
I'm gonna find out.
She's going to find out.
I've never had time, and I've always wanted to do this. I've never had time to volunteer. I have a sister who is a wonderful volunteer, and her community is always doing useful and different things, and I want to learn how to be a good volunteer. And I have several things in mind. I'm going through a little phase where I practically stop my car and walk to where the Hispanic folks who are digging holes all over this city so we can have our internet improved, and worried about being out and about and being seen, and thanking them for that. I mean, we are so privileged that service is being delivered to us by people who are nervous about what's going to happen to them out and about in the community. So something to do with the immigrant community I want to do. I wanted very much when the Ukraine battle ensued. That was before I came back. John and I were looking at whether we could teach English, do something useful. I think I'm a bit old for that now, as in I turned 80 this year, which I cannot believe, because Doctors Johnson, Knight, and Rose were not that old. Okay? And I thought they were older than time. So I've got to figure that out.
Okay.
I'm going to spend, I don't know. I don't know is the best answer I can give you.
Well, the last question I have before I have a few questions of the audience is, what do you consider your greatest achievements in your career?
Oh, being smart enough to hang around with all these smart young people. It's a real achievement. I mean, if somebody had told me when I was at Meredith that I would be at Meredith when I was 80, I would not have believed it. I mean, I would not. It would have seemed impossible. So I think having the good sense to stay with good people.
Well, we thank you, Betty, for sharing your thoughts this afternoon, and thank you all for being here to honor Betty. When we conclude, please join us over in Belk West for a reception where you'll get to ask the questions that you want to ask of Betty and talk with her.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am. You're the woman of achievement. You get to say
No, I'm going to talk about another woman of achievement. I asked Becky Bailey if she would help me because one of the things we wanted to do was a theme of English teas at this sort of funny hour to be eating, and because I have more teapots than anybody you know, because I have this English husband, and I asked Becky if she would help me arrange them, and it's going to be an astonishing arrangement because that's how she works. Raise your hand. So, be sure you look at that.
Do you want to tell me about the fat rascal?
Okay. One of you are going to see a little collection of teapot, cream, sugar, mug that says Betty's Fat Rascal, because some of you have been to York and had tea at Betty's, and her specialty is a scone called a Fat Rascal. And so I was buying some part of that collection, an apron, I think, talking to John about it, and the woman behind me, English woman, Yorkshire woman, they're different from women in the south of England, frank, eyebrow raised. She looked at John slowly, top to bottom and back, and turned to me and said, "Well, He's not too fat, but I can see he's a right rascal. So, we have Fat Rascal, Betty's Fat Rascal collection.
Well, as we draw this session to an end, I'm going to ask you, as you're able, to stand and remain standing when I name a category that fits your relationship with Dr. Webb. Please stand if you are her sister, Julia. Please continue to stand if you will. But if you're the sister of the woman of achievement, so if you want to sit. Please stand if you taught Dr. Webb. Well, I was hopeful. Please stand if Dr. Webb taught you. Please stand if you were or are in the English department at Meredith with her. If you have worked in the Office of International Programs with her. If you are a Wings graduate or current student. If you have traveled internationally with her.
Well, look at that.
If you are a colleague from Apex High or Meredith College. If she hired you. If she has entertained you in her home. If you are here because you want to honor Betty. And those standing for you and with you, we represent in one way or another some parts of your achievement. Thank you, dear Betty, and congratulations on being the 2025 Woman of Achievement for Meredith College.